Ladies and gentlemen, good morning and welcome to this last edition of the Press Today for the week. Let's kickstart today's edition with the Post newspaper from Zambia. According to the journal, Kampobo East MMD Member of Parliament Dane Chikimbu says he is seeking divine intervention before he defects to the PF. Chikimbu on Tuesday said he was facing difficult times in his political career. Visit page 2 of the Post Zambia to read more on this story. In another development, President Michael Sata says allegations by some politicians that his party is decimating the opposition is not true to fact. Sata, in a statement, said if the opposition parties whose members are of parliament who are currently serving in government allow their parliamentarians to contribute without intimidation, there will be no need for by-elections. Taking you to South Africa, we'll be looking at the famous Business Day newspaper. The paper reports that Telkom insists that it has not contravened the Competition Act and believes it is duty-bound to appeal to 449 million rand fine levied against it for uncompetitive behavior to protect the interests of its shareholders. These past 6 months have been very difficult for Telkom. It reported an 80% drop in first half earnings to September, and the fine is a big impairment on its books. The paper also writes that opposition parties hailed 3 victories on Thursday as heralding a new era in South African politics where the United Action can force concessions from the African National Congress ANC, hastening the day when the ruling party's majority will no longer be guaranteed. Still in South Africa, we'll be looking at Cape Times. Cape Times South Africa reports that 2 more Western Cape ANC regions are backing party Deputy President Kanlima Matland to unseat President Jacob Zuma at the ANC Mangwan Conference. The West Coast regions are also aiming to replace ANC Secretary General Gwende Mantashe with ANC National Executive Committee NEC member and Sports Minister Fikile Mbalula. The paper again writes that the South African government's approach to need to improve maths is the same as that under apartheid. University of the Free State Vice-Chancellor Professor Jonathan Johnson said on Thursday he was delivering the 2012 Helen Zosman public lecture entitled The Mathematics of Democracy in Johannesburg. Looking at this paper from Cameroon, the Post newspaper. In this weekend edition, the paper states on its cover page that detained UNO State of Cameroon activists have been granted bail. Some 54 people arrested and detained for 1 month in Bamenda, in the northwest region of Cameroon, for militating for what they termed United Nations Organization State of Cameroon, have been granted bail by the Northwest Court of Appeal. Read on more on page 2. The paper also talks about how the IMF is pushing Cameroon to slash fuel subsidies. Get the details on page 7. Also find on page 7 of this edition of the paper why a World Bank official says trade with Nigeria will boost Cameroon's economy. Taking you to Zimbabwe, we'll be looking at the Zimbabwe newspaper. According to the Zimbabwe newspaper, Reserve Bank of Zimbabwe officials took advantage of chaos at the central bank to make shady purchases of farming equipment under the Farm Mechanization Initiative adopted during the quasi-fiscal era. The paper also writes that ZANU-PF is distributing farm inputs with President Robert Mugabe's picture on the packaging. The Movement for Democratic Change and Discriminated Farmers described the move as a scandalous vote-buying exercise. However, some CIO operatives have questioned the lawfulness of denying MDC members access to the farm inputs. Taking you to Asia, we'll be looking at China daily. The paper writes that manufacturing activity expanded for the first time in 13 months, according to a key index gauging factory output. The HSBC Purchasing Managers Index hit 50.4 in November. A reading above 50 indicates expansion. The index has been improving gradually over the past 3 months. China's rise to become one of the world's major economic powerhouses has boosted demand for MBA courses among students, all hoping to gain the sought-after qualifications and increase their chances of claiming a well-paid, prestigious position. Still in Asia, we'll be looking at the Wall Street Journal Asia. The paper reports that European Union's leaders brandish demands and threats as they arrive at their summit in Brussels on Thursday to get a deal on the bloc's budget, with the UK leading a large, diverse pack of malcontents who talk down hopes of agreement. Read more on this story on page 14. Still in the paper, the front-runner to become Japan's next prime minister said he will consider loosening some of Japan's fiscal discipline policies in defiance of warnings by credit raters to curb borrowing by the world's most indebted government, suggesting instead more spending to help jumpstart growth. Taking you to the United Arab Emirates, we'll be looking at the Gulf newspaper. Gulf newspaper reports that Hamas Prime Minister Ismail Haniyeh on Thursday called on Palestinian factions to respect the ceasefire deal a day earlier. Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas congratulated Haniyeh on his victory and offered condolences for the martyrs. According to Australian scientists who went searching for the mystery landmass during a geological expedition, a Southeast Pacific island identified on Google Earth and the world maps does not exist. To better understand these stories, visit the Gulf newspaper for more details. Let's end this edition of the Press Today with this paper from the United Kingdom, International Herald Tribune. According to this paper, the conflict that ended for now in a ceasefire between Hamas and Israel seems like the latest episode in a periodic showdown. However, according to American and Israeli officials, there was a second strategic agenda unfolding. Still in the paper, the floor of the European Union's converse and mostly vacant parliamentary chamber is hardly known for its lively debates. Read more on International Herald Tribune for better understanding of these stories. This is why we call it out for the press today on your Pan-African television. We're hoping to meet you on Monday, same time. Stay tuned or follow our programs online on www.afrimedia.tv.